we shift now from the south of Alberta to the north of Alberta as we enter the fifth of these CFL team previews as we move to the Edmonton Elks and the one and only Andrew Hoskins, otherwise known as Freepalicious on Twitter. Sir, I want to jump right into it with the Elks because I feel like I don't. It's so weird to describe where this franchise is at, just because it's the whole what happened last year has just been the same old. But then towards the end of last year, it's hey, momentum into 26. But where's the Elk fan base currently standing with this roster? Because I feel like a lot of us outsiders can make assumptions, but what's truly everything like in the 7-8-0 right now?
Well, I think it's a mix of emotion at the moment. I think there's a lot of let's see how it goes.
Cautious
And
optimism.
absolutely, yes. The thing is I think you're right. At the end of last year, there was this hope of we are seeing things that we want to see at not only on the field, but off the field. We're starting to see the guys be in the community more, but we're also seeing some success on the field. Now, we weren't, winning as much as we would like for sure, but there were steps in the right direction. You look at that defense that was giving up 30 points all the time in the first 6 games, but all of a sudden they found that way to gel and they were playing very well near the end of the season. The offense under Cody had moments, moments that really shone bright and other moments that were like, ugh. So I think that we know that last year there was a ton of injuries as well, and we had a bunch of new guys. A bunch of those guys are now going into year 2, and we're seeing that progression. And I think that's why you have that cautious optimism going on.
I only use the word cautious optimism as well, just because it's because like when you and we'll do this too because I've been doing this with everyone. We'll take what does Andrew think of the tour of the CFL, but the one with Edmonton, everyone's kind of really saying is that show me something. Hey,
Right.
show me that this Elks team is the Elks team that like Edmontonians. I feel like that's the right name to call you guys.
It is.
That you guys want to see. That you guys want to see. It's the team that you guys can be proud of. Return to the the glory days of what former football in Edmonton was. So the thing for right now too, because when you look at the West, and after speaking to our wonderful friend Ryan last week, I've kind of gotten a vibe of so far. There's the two contenders. Calgary's kind of that quiet team in the that quiet team in the wings, but then Edmonton's kind of like that. And I'm gonna drop a random Simpsons reference here, but there was the pretzel episode, one of my favorites, and there was the little Japanese guy just not doing anything, and Homer's like, wait, he's gonna do something. I feel like that's kind of Edmonton right now, where it's like you're waiting for him to do, it's like he's gonna do something, and you turn your back, and you're like, hey, there's Edmonton. They rip off like a 3-game winning streak.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that's kind of where we're all sitting too, where it's like, well, like at some point they're going to do something and then we're all going to be amazed. And I do think I remember this time last year when we went out and today was fan day here
Yep.
at Edmonton. And last year, I know we talked shortly after fan day, and there was already a couple of injuries that happened during fan day this year out clean. So that was a good step. But I do think that there was just, we had all this hope for the defense when you watched last year. And then this season started and it wasn't so great. And this year, though, as I'm watching that secondary, who are now all guys that have played together already, it's like, okay, yeah, they're getting it. And they did some rotation up on that defensive line to try and make sure that the pressure was getting there, and bringing in guys like Malik Carney, making sure that Robbie Smith can, actually do what he does well, by bringing in guys like Brinkman and Jordan Williams has had an outstanding camp so far at defensive line. So there's a lot of depth there, but I think they also went to a defensive line coach, a brand new guy, who just brings some real energy to that line. And that part makes me excited. So, but I also remember how excited I was last year for it and then how it fell off. So I think you're right. We're like, we get so excited, but we're kind of like, do we stare at them or do we just wait and see what happens and then go, oh yay, okay, they did it. Okay, good. Okay, so I it's totally the cautious optimism. I agree with you. I am not like Ryan, who is like everything is going to be great no matter what. I'm kind of more of the I'm ready to, I hope springs eternal, but I don't I'm not jumping on to say like, wow, they're going to destroy this year. I think they're set up well to do well, but they have to be able to execute.
Yeah, I completely agree too. Where it's, and also I love the fact you mentioned Jordan Williams, because I was about to ask you, because obviously last year, look, he was with Toronto, got released, clearly some tensions with Dinwiddie, and now we saw it carry over into that game, to that very electric game, I should say, Toronto Edmonton. I believe that's the first time you and I met, just before that game last year.
Yes.
And then this year now, Jordan gets to see his former head coach in Ottawa week 1 in the nation's capital. So we'll see if those fireworks kind of carry over, because like there was a lot of emotion behind that and the kick and everything like that. But with Edmonton though, like and like the way I say, I know I like everyone has their own values, but like I'm sort of the same way with Toronto right now, just because, and it's not for the same reason as Edmonton, but they're coming off a 5-13 season. They were there, new head coach, new, a lot of, basically, it's a lot of new with Toronto, and basically a lot of new, I want to say new, but as well, they've all been asleep for probably 3.5 hours now. It's the team I cover. I'm allowed to make those jokes.
Yes, of course. Yes.
but with the two teams of Toronto and Edmonton, I find it very similar to where it's, hey, you had a downish year last year, because like, I'm saying for both were down. Like
Yes.
you can call a spade a spade. They're both down years. But you can now do it to where it's, hey, no one's really paying attention to you, because in the East, you have everyone kind of looking at Hamilton and Montreal. In the West, you have everyone looking at Sask. You have everyone looking at BC. That's where I feel like, Toronto and Ottawa, Calgary and Edmonton, I'll get into Winnipeg in a little bit on my thoughts on them with you. But with those teams, especially with like the Alberta and the Ontario teams, they really have the chance to kind of not, and I don't want to say shock the world, because I feel like in a league like the CFL, when there's 9 teams, there's no shocking of worlds. Maybe next year there is, if a 7 seed makes it to the Grey Cup in Regina. We don't know that yet.
Right.
But
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or it's an West-West or East-East final, right? Like that would be shocking. But anyway, we'll wait for that.
There's certain matchups with that I feel like would honestly turn the app that you and I love into a cesspool. Just like that, what you see in NFL culture a lot. There's
You don't say. Yeah.
And I don't want to say Banjo Bowl, just because that already happened. But if it's a Toronto Hamilton Grey Cup and Toronto were to beat Hamilton, I don't know if that's just hilarious or sad at that point, where it's like near 30-year drought and your biggest rival gets their 20th. That's just a kick. That's a kick in the nads.
That would be absolutely.
Yeah. But just to let's reel this fish back in. But the one thing with Edmonton I'm most looking forward to, besides the defense, because obviously that's the other connection. They basically said last year, hey, we're going to take the entire Toronto Argonauts defensive line and bring it to Edmonton. Obviously, Jake Stresna didn't work out. He got hurt. He's now in Winnipeg. You say Robbie Smith's into form, Jared Brinkman, Jordan Williams. But the biggest thing for this team that I'm most looking forward to this year is that Austin Mack, Cody Fajardo connection, because we saw how lethal and deadly it can be. And I feel like last year, Austin Mack kind of had his NFL stint, didn't work out, came back, wasn't the same, was gone from Montreal, which everyone I think was kind of caught off guard by, just because, it's Montreal. They're kind of they've been the pinnacle over the last couple of years of just consistency, to where now he goes to Edmonton and has a chance to, like, hey, really get this Edmontonian train back on the track. So I really think that's another element to this that people aren't seeing yet, but also as well, the overall evolution of Mark Killam as a head coach, I think like people are going to slowly start to see more, because, and I'm not saying they're going to do it, but Ryan Dinwiddie did win his first Grey Cup in his second year coaching.
Yeah, I always I mean, that's always the hope. That's always the goal, and we know that. I don't want to, jump to any quick conclusion, but I will say, starting with the point that you said about consistency, it has been a while since Edmonton has seen basically the entire coaching staff continue to be the same even to the next year. And it was really noticeable at camp this year, because not only were the practices kind of more smooth, there wasn't any, hey, like, what are we doing? Oh, right. Yeah. It's like, we're doing this. Everybody knows. But I found that Mark has really taken that next step to being more of the head coach, being in every spot. And last year he would default to that special teams because he knows it so well and he's so good at it. And he has done some of that for sure in this camp, but I'm seeing him more kind of with every group and trying to help and support the coaching that's there already to make it better. So I think, and because the coaches know each, I mean, there was only 2 coaching changes for us, and that's unheard of in Edmonton over the last number of years. And even looking at the roster, I have the fan day roster from right here. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, I know most of the names. The last few years, it's always been like, who's that guy again? Um, Wait, what's that guy? I don't remember. This year it's like, okay, I know that guy. I know that guy. I know that, and the guys because a lot of those 2s and 3s ended up having to play last year because of the injuries, and so I think that consistency goes such a long way. We spoke about it with Cordell Jackson and Kenny Logan, and both of them said that now I know where I need to be, but I also know what that other guy is going to do. And I think that's a huge thing. Going to the offensive side,
Yep.
I agree with you in the fact that bringing Mac back with Cody Fajardo is a great thing. And you look at Cody Fajardo, Keon Julian Grant, and Mac all coming from that Grey Cup winning Montreal team, all kind of knowing each other. I think that helps. One thing that they've done, though, is they've moved Mac into an interior position instead of that wide position. And so we're seeing, at least in practice right now, they're still trying to figure out the timing of him being in that position as compared to the outside. So there's been a couple of big catches, but there's been a lot of either going the wrong way or just missing each other quite yet. So the offense is a little bit behind where I maybe would hoped it to be. When they did the scrimmage on Sunday, the defense just dominated the entire scrimmage. Like the offense struggled. There's no argument about that. Even Cody said it after the practice. He was frustrated that it just wasn't as smooth as what they would hope to have had. But I do think that as they build that connection once again, I think that will be a really good thing to watch. A couple of their names just to throw out there. Something that I didn't really think when they signed him, but Brandon O'Leary-Orange has been outstanding at camp, catching pretty much everything thrown his way. And so I think that he's kind of starting to make a name for himself, and he's been playing a lot with the ones. So it's kind of interesting to see that step. I wasn't quite, I don't want to say prepared, but I was like, interesting. I kind of thought that would be, more of a secondary role, but here he's kind of taken on that role. And that might be partly because Keon Julian Grant did get nicked and has been out for a few days. So maybe that's part of it. But we're seeing the return of a guy like Zach Mathis, who last year was on a tear before he got injured. And so he's now back up with the ones, and it's very interesting to see how they're going to develop that. We always know offense takes longer to get going than defense, but this next week in camp, and especially this preseason game on this coming Saturday, I want to say it is 23rd, is going to be very interesting to see how they mix the guys in so that they can work on that chemistry before we're getting into games that count, but actually getting a chance to see some of these other guys that need to be seen too.
Yeah, so it is Saturday at very random time, 5 o'clock Eastern, which is 2 p.m. Pacific, which is going to be first kick. So you also gave me the title for the show, which is "Orange is the New Green." So I really appreciate that from you.
No problem. Yeah, we call them Boo because it's much more fun that way. Yeah.
Yeah, boo! Orange is the new green. Oh,
Yeah.
something my eye. But no, because I noticed him. He's a name for Edmonton. I like with Hamilton. I always noticed him. Like he was someone. Even if I'm watching a Ticats game on TV, if I'm like the games I got to cover with the Ticats and the Argonauts, like he's someone I always noticed. And then obviously you're saying how yesterday the defense dominated. That was the big article headline. I know that. Believe JC wrote the piece, but then you're the one who got the quotes for it.
Correct.
Yeah, I've done that before, so that's why I just wanted to ask. Like, because even yesterday too with Toronto, I didn't do a write up or anything on it, but Toronto had their double blue scrimmage yesterday. There's no fan day, but got the chance to talk to coach. And basically he was just looking for certain things. He's looking for just tempo. He's looking for overall stuff. So that's kind of the thing right now where I feel like those scrimmages come into key play it's just a chance for the coaching staff to see, hey, before we play real competition, where do our guys stand? Because like how you guys have O'Leary Orange, and I don't know if it was the same circumstance with Toronto, but Dave Ungerer really was a guy who kind of stood out yesterday in the scrimmage, even though Coxie wasn't
Hmm,
involved. Jake Herslow was a name I was surprised wasn't involved, but I feel like he's going to be a more elevated role on the team this year.
right.
Um, but that's just the whole thing there. Even circling it back to Edmonton now is just, hey, how do the guys look? How like what's the team like at? It's not just like a vibe wise, but it's more like how are they like gelling and meshing together? Because if you can see that early on in camp, it can only lead to. And I don't want to say like like you're saying not getting ahead of ourselves with our teams with great cup success, but more or less just a general, hey, this is a team that we can have like that faith in going into 2026 that they can be good. This is a team that Edmontonians can get behind, as I previously had said before.
Yeah, and I think that's the case. I think they're doing a really good job of reaching out to the community. They're really playing on the consistency, which I love. They should be, right? These are the same, you saw these players last year. And on top of that, we've added these other players that are going to also help. So I think they are selling it the right way so that people want to be there to see some winning football. And uh, really the bottom line is will we see more winning football this year than we have in probably the last 5 years, likely combined? Pretty close. And
Yeah.
so I think that's I think that is a big deal. They're also doing a really cool thing where their preseason game this year is going to be played in at Clark Field, which is where they used to play before Commonwealth opened in 1978. Much more intimate crowd, much more you're going to be kind of right on top of the play. And they're really selling this as a throwback night, to get people out to a preseason game. And I think they have an opportunity there to, because you're so close to the play, you can kind of see and be able to, I don't want to quite say interact with the guys, but to a point. And I know that they've been saying that having all the practices at Clark Field, we're seeing more fans come out to watch. We're seeing more people who are interested in how is this team going to be. I don't see fans coming in going, "Hey, this is our Grey Cup winning team," but they're coming in and going, "I want to see what they can do." And at Fan Day today, it's probably the busiest I've seen it in about 5 or 6 years. And the hope is there, right? It's like, yes, they're building the right thing. They're feeling more like the team that we always knew and loved. And I think that more than anything is really important. And then when the wins come, everybody is already on board with this is the culture that we expect, this is the acting that we expect, and then this is the winning that we expect.
Just for context with Clark Field, just for the rest of the audience, where and also for me too, because I know you're saying it's close to Commonwealth, but is it like a stone's throw from Commonwealth? Is it down the street?
It is literally right next to it. So
Oh,
where Commonwealth is, and then we tailgate right beside Commonwealth, which is directly north of Clark Stadium. So our tailgate spot will be exactly the same, and we'll just walk right into the field. We'll just go north instead of going east. But other than that, they're right next to each other with just a parking lot in between.
gotcha. I just wanted to ask that just because obviously, like, look, they're doing their camp there right now. Toronto does theirs at U of Guelph, which, and I know like Hamilton does McMaster, but for context, because for Toronto's camp, it's about 45 minutes west of the downtown core to where they do their camp and where they're going to be bunkered down for the next, let's call it 8 weeks or so. So
Right.
that's the big thing there. But the one other thing I want to look at before we just do our tour, do we do the Freeps tour of the CFL is um, just the overall schedule. Just because like how I was looking at it, and we all know we look at BC and Toronto for the disadvantages of this year,
Ooh,
but I noticed the weird quirk with like you guys because it's like June 1 home game, July 2 home games, and then there's 3 in August, and then it's kind of evens out once September and October roll around. But um, do you think that's something that could be good for the team or beneficial? Because I even look at it too, where you get some of like even though there is quite a few road games, it's mostly west except for going to Ottawa. But then later in the year, you have to do the trips to Toronto and to Hamilton, but then you get the Montreal one kind of tucked in there in the middle of August. So, like as a fan and even a reporter, do you like the schedule or do you kind of wish there was something different with it?
I think every year I look at the schedule, I look at it and go, "Oh, I always wish this was better." And then I look at it again and go, "Eh, they have to play the games at some point, so no big deal." Like you said, they have to travel out to Ottawa, but then they get the bye in week 2, so they can go through camp. Right through till that first game, and then they get a little bit of a break before they get their home opener. So I do kind of like that. The funny thing is, and I know you and I were texting about this, it's like, well, there's only really 3 games during the summer. And I'm like, well, I mean, take the hot weather ones while you can. As a tailgater, I'm like, well, that means we can use more of the grill in the fall, because if you use it during the summer, some of us get heat exhaustion. Not saying who, but it might be Andrew. Anyway, so it's not horrible. The one thing that I will say is, and this is something that I haven't talked about with Coach Killam, but I just get the feeling that with this particular team, it might help to be on the road a bit more, to get that time, that camaraderie. They've really done a good job of building it through camp, but can they build that when they're on the road? And then when they're back, if they do get the stronger start, which is what we're hoping for, when they're back home, there's more people coming to the games, because now the hope is really there. Do you see what I mean? So I'm actually not really that upset about the way it is. I'm a sucker for a good game at 15 degrees. That's perfectly fine by me. So those fall games are going to be wonderful.
I'm also looking at it too because I feel like there's one team out there that gets a shitload of Thursday night games, and that's Calgary.
Yep.
Besides that, though, like there's a few Thursdays sprinkled in here. Like I think for Toronto, it's like literally all Friday, Saturday, and I think there are literally our 2 Thursday games are against when Toronto goes to Calgary and when Calgary comes to Toronto. Which one of
Okay.
those is our official home opener? But like I'm looking at it here too. Like hey, Saturday, and then you get the short week, but then it's just travel there, but then you get a bit of a break in there, but then, another Thursday, a Friday, and a Thursday, but it kind of balances itself out with that second Thursday being at home. But I do
Yep.
agree with you in the sense of just that overall cohesion that can be formed when a team goes on the road. So I think it could play out, and I like your motto of just like, hey, they got to play the games when they play the games, and God forbid you get heat exhaustion again while being grill master. So it's just
Oh,
those
it
like
sucked. It was
yeah,
awful, but
like
I mean, so I'm happy to have lots of grill games in the fall. That's
yeah.
lovely.
No, exactly. But no. It's just like it's just the question there because like obviously scheduling is a huge topic of conversation down in the NFL. Like, where it's like, oh, teams playing on short weeks and travel and all that stuff. But I feel like with the CFL, some fans just take it as, hey, it is what it is, and they just kind of roll with the punches. Except if you are getting more of those Thursday games, but. I also noticed. I feel like I don't know if it's me or I feel like there's not that many Sunday games. Is there? Because I know, for example, like with Sundays, they kind of take them out of equation once NFL season starts up. But I feel like even this year, I feel like it's mostly just Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
It really seemed that way to me, and I know for the Elks, I don't think I don't even know if they actually have a Sunday game in there. I do know that one interesting thing that I actually quite like is they have 2 home games that are on Saturdays that are at 2 o'clock. And so your tailgate is
Versus
starting.
Toronto's a 1 o'clock start, by the way.
Oh, 1 o'clock and a 2 o'clock. Yeah. And, but then your tailgate is breakfast time. Like, but
Mm.
the part I like that, and actually one of ours, we are doing breakfast. Our schedule will come out soon, but everybody pay attention because it's going to be Circle Cereal morning and it's going to be a blast. Anyway, yeah, I do like that because it helps to bring some families back. And I think that's a good thing. But I do think that you're right in the fact that we got to play them. So it is what it is. That's a great way to put it, because I just want to play them, and I just focus on your next game, find a way to be comfortable, and carry on.
Yeah, I did look up the schedule though. Throughout the month of there's a couple in August, but then July is most of the Sunday games. And uh, out of all of them, 3 of the 4 games are the Hamilton Tiger Cats. But
Oh,
I also love the afternoon games because like Labor Day, for example, last year the media meal in the press box was breakfast, even though the game was at 2:30 in the afternoon. So
mhm.
there's
Yeah.
just some things like that, and so on. So if Andrew's all sugared up when the Argos come to town, you guys know why.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll just be vibrating in the stands because I'll be high on Lucky Charms and beer of some kind. I think. I don't know. We'll see how this works. But we do have a plan to have a little bit of fun with that for sure.
Alrighty, so I think it's about the time, and I've been hyping it up to you for a little bit, that we take your tour around the CFL. What I'll do exactly is just give you to get. I'm just going to ask you for each team, simple 1 to 10. One being a low confidence, 10 being this is how you feel about the team. And you know what? We'll start off with the team that you love and support, and that there's all the green and gold in your closet behind you there. If you had to give a number for the Edmonton Elks this year of your confidence meter, where do you rank them going into the year?
At this particular moment, I'm going to give them about a 6. That's where my confidence is at.
Yeah, I'm so like I'll just run down mine quickly just so you know, and then we'll get into yours. But I'm a 6 for you guys. I'm a 7 for Calgary. I'm also a 6 for Winnipeg. I'm an 8 for BC, and I'm a 9 for Sask. Just because it's defending champs to get kind of the crown
Of
of
course.
rights there. But with me
Of
with
course.
Edmonton, it's a 6 basically. I'm just like, hey, show me what you can do. Show me what you got.
I think there's been too many years where it's always been this team looks great on paper, and then they start playing the games and oopsie. And so I think it's easier to go with. I want to be confident, but I don't want to be like crazy. So that's why I land with the 6 there.
Yeah, that's completely fair. And then if I had to ask you to do it, how do you feel about Calgary right now? Any fighting words for Mr. Valentine there?
Well, he'll always beat me in any of those verbal battles. I know that, but we do like to spar a little bit here back and forth. Um, Calgary, my confidence is I want to put it at like a 4. And the reason I do that is because if something happens to Vernon Adams, what happens to that team? And I'm not saying that I never wish injury, especially on a guy like Vernon, who's an incredible guy and player. But I think they're in big trouble if Vernon gets hurt. And so I don't like to put a ton of confidence in a team that doesn't have, well, they have a quarterback that has had some injury history. And they're kind of where we were a couple of years ago, where it's like this constant state of change. And I'm not sure how that actually played. I thought last year they bounced back very well in the face of all that adversity. Their defense played very well. I'm curious if they can continue that, especially when you look at the end of last season when people kind of started to figure it out a bit more.
Yeah, my thing with Calgary is, Ryan got me to believe in it a slight bit, was just that
He's
the
good at
fact. But no, it's just for them. It was more the fact of, and how do I put this in the best of ways? What's the word I'm looking for here? The fact that they have the team they want, because I'll be honest with you, I was where Calgary you are with Calgary this year, I was last year. I had no
yeah,
confidence. I thought it was like a last hurrah for Dave, but then now we kind of look, it's his system. I really think for them it can go either way. I really like Dejon
right.
Brissett at wide receiver. I just their defense for me is more of a question mark than their offense, honestly, because of
Okay.
guys going to the NFL, Flo still recovering from the Achilles. So that's the big question mark with me with Calgary Stampeders, is just, hey, while all the pressure's on the two teams who made the West Final last year, I feel like if they get off to a slow start, or if they're not the Calgary Stampeders that, like I said, Ryan's thinking that they can be in that quiet contender status, I do think they can get into a lot of trouble, whether it's injuries or whether it's just a couple bad losses here or there. So that's the big thing for me with that squad.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think confidence plays such a huge factor in this game, and if they get off to the hot start like they did last year, well, then maybe they can build off of it and go from there. But if they don't, do they have the right personnel, people, and abilities to uh, be able to get back on track? And I Vernon is excellent, and I've always loved him as a quarterback. Um, I think he can do wonderful things. But he's one guy on a full team, and that's why I'm like, I think it kind of hinges on how he does. Because if they can put points up, great. But you're right. The defense might struggle a tad, but I thought that last year and they played lights out. So I'm not going to write them off.
I'm the exact same way. It's just for me that defense, because like I was saying, because of the injuries, because of NFL loss, is just like and with a guy like Flo, we saw the impact he had. I know everyone's looking at Jalen Hutchings
100%.
on that line, but Flo was really the engine that made that defense go. He was.
He makes a
But
lot of
so
defenses go. Yeah.
exactly. I know it firsthand in Toronto. He's doing it in Calgary this year. Um, BC, look, the way I look at them, I think they're honestly under the most pressure to win, just because for them it's that constant. You got close in 24 last year. Everything was in your favor. You come up close in 25. 2026 though, they have the rough start. I feel like because they have their pseudo homes, I believe it's in Kelowna or Kamloops, they'll be playing the first couple months of the season. It's not as bad as what Toronto's doing, which I will get into some stuff as I've been at the University of Guelph the last couple of days. Shout out to our wonderful friend Justin Dunk.
Nice.
But with BC though, like I am confident in them, but honestly, it's like how I view some teams. Like basically how for years, obviously, look, your hockey team, my hockey team, they're both bad seasons, but we always say wait till the springtime to judge them. I'm
Yes.
waiting till the fall time to judge when the poppies are being worn. Where is Nathan Work? Is he playing football in Calgary, or is he wearing a suit and maybe getting a second MOP in a row? That's where I feel like we're going to truly judge this BC Lions season.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And the thing is that I think BC has a lot of weapons, and I think they've done a decent job at upgrading on their defense, which is something that they needed to have some of that in play.
A bad Toronto team put up 50 on them last year.
Yeah, I know, and it's like so you need a little help there, but I do think that they have a lot of, you're right, they have a ton of pressure on them to do well.
Yep.
But I'm fairly confident that they will do that. I'm not going to go crazy, but I would definitely put my confidence level around a 7 for them to be playing well, because they do have pieces. Again, and this is something that I guess I can kind of go right across the West Division right now, is there's 3 teams anyway, maybe 4, that if their starter goes down, what happens with that team? And BC is another one of them, right? If Rourke for some reason goes down, where does that team go? And I'm not really sure what the answer to that is. Calgary was one. Saskatchewan to some degree is one, where if Harris has to spend any time out, then what? And even to some degree, and this is the one that I was like, maybe Winnipeg, in the fact that it looks like Elgersma has the opportunity to be the number 2, but you go from Claris to a rookie, and I'm not saying he's bad, but we haven't seen anything of what he can do. And that's one of the things I'm actually quite happy with Edmonton set up at this point, which kind of helps in the confidence factor, is that if, knock on every piece of wood possible, something happened to Cody, Taylor Powell has started and won games in the CFL, and he looks very comfortable in this offense. So I'm not worried about that as much. So that always tempers my confidence with any team.
That's just the big thing. Sorry, I'm kind of partially distracted as it's game 7. I think the Buffalo Sabres either just took the lead or not.
What? Oh no.
Yeah. Shout out to our wonderful friend Argos PA director Adam Goss, who is at this game right now.
Of course,
Sabres
yes.
fan. Yes.
I'm happy for him, and yet not. Okay, yeah. Okay.
But no, you're right about the backup quarterback situation, and I want to go to I want to go to Winnipeg because I'm going to save the champs for last, but I don't know what to think with them. And this is coming off the heels as I just got followed on Twitter by their senior reporter Ed Tate as well.
Okay.
So Ed, if you do know about my show, Ed, and you're listening to this, I'm sorry, but I just look at Winnipeg this year, where I'm kind of like, is this the year the wheels fall off? Is it just another season of because the last couple seasons, even though they found their way into a Grey Cup, the loyalty to Collaros kind of is what killed them. And my big thing with Elgersma right now is, and I know our guys at 3 Down Nation love him, but he hasn't played competitive football in a year and a half. And if he were to start, or I don't know if he is on a short leash or not, but if Zach were to go down or if he doesn't play well, do we really expect the Algersma, who, just ran OUA football in 2024, to come in and dominate after, bouncing around the NFL, bouncing around, trying to get a spot in the UFL? Obviously, there's the visa issues. I don't know if you can fully expect them to do that right away. I feel like if you're Winnipeg, you got to kind of use this year, and I'm not saying they're going to be bad, but you really got to look at what is the true future of this Bombers team. Not what are we going to be in 2026, 27, 28, 29, into the 30s, as crazy as that is to say. That's where I feel like the Winnipeg Blue Bombers should be at. I'm not saying, rebuild, tear it down, be bad, but you got to look at what your future is. Like, you can play for them. You always got to play for the now in football, but you got to look at what your 5-year plan is if you're the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, my honest opinion.
I 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. And the one thing that I remember all of those years were like, well, this has got to be the down year for Calgary, right? This has got to be the down for, and then somehow they do well. Like even last year, we were like, okay, so now they're going to have a second bad year, right? Like that's what happens. Nope, wrong. So that's where I kind of sit with Winnipeg in that I'm like, they should be. They, by all accounts, they should be dropping off at some point. And they are getting older, and like you said, there is some of that loyalty there. Not Willie Jefferson still knocks down a whole bunch of balls, but he's not getting to the quarterback the same way as he did 4 years ago.
Yep.
Stanley Bryant is still an excellent offensive lineman, but he's getting up there in age. And I know they brought in Broxton. They've brought in Jake Seresna on the D line. They weren't settling, and they were bringing in guys that have, some ability and talent and experience, which is fantastic. Are they going to be able to keep putting those? Are they able to do hey, this is the next guy up. This is the guy that's going to take that place. And I am not sure that they have all of that in place as of yet. I again, don't ever want to wish harm on anybody, but I do also, I'm worried about where if somebody gets hurt, then where do they stand? And so we saw them kind of falter a little bit last year, not fall off, but falter or trip a little bit. I'm not sure if that trip turns into a stumble this year or whether they stand back up.
Yeah, and I'm looking at their schedule right now, and like we bring up both teams, but Friday Night Football week 1, it is Calgary versus Winnipeg. It's gonna be it's gonna be a doozy. But then they play Hamilton, and then you guys go there week 4, at Hamilton, at Toronto,
yeah,
at Ottawa versus Calgary versus BC. So you get a couple heavy hitters in there. You play Hamilton twice and you play Calgary twice in the first couple months of the season. So I really think some of those games there, like even to like how they have that stretch, like I say, at Toronto, even though the game's in Winnipeg.
Yes,
there are certain games that, like, if you notice the team stumbling out of the gates, you can't let them. It's like in a fight, you can't let the fighter get back up. No, you gotta just keep on doing it until the ref says, "Hey, no more." But that's just the thing with Winnipeg. Like, and I'm in the same boat as you. I just think more it's if Zach's play is not up to par, I think there's a very good chance that he's probably the starting quarterback. I would say him, and there's one other quarterback we'll get into who are on very short leashes. I think one hasn't been discussed about enough, but I do think if the play is not there and Elgersman's waiting, you got to pull that shoot, I think, before the fan base kind of starts, calling for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree.
And then the champs in Sask, I think it's business as usual. They did a really good job retaining talent. Obviously, they lost guys like Malik Carney to your Elks and a few other players here and there, but I really think as long as they stay healthy and they keep playing their brand of football, they'll be fine. I think they're not to say they're the dynasty, but they'll always be that team where I'm like, you don't have to worry about them unless the train comes completely off the tracks. That's really all I got to say about them.
I can't agree with you more. I do think that Corey Mace has set a really good culture there. He's been huge in making that culture and making everybody comfortable, in finding a way to get the best out of the players that they have there. And he did that in Toronto. He did that in Calgary. He's doing it in Saskatchewan. I don't again, I don't know what they have as far as depth is concerned. I'm a little behind in keeping up on everybody's depth at this
Jack Cohn
particular
didn't seem
moment.
to play. I think Jack Cohn had a pretty bad game today, from what I saw in the group chat.
Is what I heard. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that it's again, you just don't know where that backup is, but I do think Saskatchewan. I'm fairly confident they are going to still be in the mix at the end of the year, no matter what happens.
Yep.
Just because they've found a way and a system that they can have a lot of great guys playing in, and people want to play in it. I kind of attribute, or I look at that very similar to what Mark Killam is doing here, and Mark Killam is a year behind where Corey Mace was. So yeah, I think that they're going to be doing just fine.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat like you said there. And then the only thing I'll say with the end of the mix is this: for if the team who comes in ninth place next year, do we just parade them around Regina and everyone just yells shame at them for that one team that doesn't make it?
They all get the one that says I played an entire CFL season and all I got was this lousy shirt. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or
Yeah.
just a T-shirt to say like can like it's just like Cancun on it or something like that.
Golfers. No, I guess not
Yes.
really, because it'd be wintertime at that point. Yeah. We get to ski first. There you go. That's the little slogan right there.
We'll meet you at Whistler. Gonna move east, and the team that I was referring to with the short leash quarterback, and I still don't know what to think about them. I honestly think Ryan Dinwiddie really loves Jake Mayer, and I think the first chance he sees if Drew Brown plays bad, I think Jake's getting thrown in there. But as the Red Blacks as a whole go, look, Ryan Dinwiddie's an outstanding individual. He's one hell of a football coach. I just I don't know if the same magic he did in Toronto can be applied immediately in Ottawa, just because Ottawa's in that same boat where more than anything, I still remember 2024 playoffs, they have a great showing against Toronto, and it was on to next year.
Hmm.
Next year comes and it was just back to square one and they were terrible. So until they are a true I need to see it before I believe in it, I'd rather, I don't want to buy high on the Ottawa Red Blacks at all. I'm like 50-50 on them. I think it can go either way. I just want to see if they have another similar season to what Toronto did this year and it doesn't really go to plan. How does, now that he's got the GM powers, Ryan Dinwiddie respond to it all?
Yeah, I do think this is the new year of a first year of a new head coach. I know he's been a head coach for a while. I know but this is the first year he's now taking on the GM responsibilities.
Yep.
I understand he still has, Sean Burke there that can, help with contracts and
Got
those types.
promoted and didn't do a good job and still got promoted, but yes.
Yes, but he's around. So I can see, and you're right. Dinwiddie is a good coach. I'm curious to see, because he has been kind of a quarterback whisperer when you look at see who came through the system. Can he have that same effect on Drew Brown? Can Drew Brown stay healthy? Did they do enough with that offensive line to help a guy like Drew Brown to succeed? Because one of the reasons that Drew Brown had a ton of success in Winnipeg is he had all day to throw the ball, and that Winnipeg O line was outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
And if Ottawa is going to have any success, they're going to have to really work on that offensive line. That'll be Dinwiddie's focus. I think that it'll be one of those things where we go, okay, this year they could be better. They could be right about the same. I agree. I'm not going to put a ton of confidence in them to get a whole lot better, but I do think that as the season goes on, they kind of learn the system. It becomes a little bit more. And then Dinwiddie can start finding his guys to bring in next year to bolster that team as he feels that he sees them to need.
That's exactly how I feel. And I'm not saying they're going to be like 4 or 5 win team, but
Right.
I would say maybe, to quote the kids, 6, 7, somewhere in that range. Like, somewhere in that range scale of wins. Maybe they flirt with 8. I don't know. But now if you move a little bit more east to La Belle Province and Montreal, my big thing for them really is just, how will they if they have to handle adversity through this year? Because we all know the story with Davis Alexander. More than health is just, if he goes out there and he loses a couple of games, because let's be honest, there was a few games last year where kind of pulled rabbits out of places, and rabbits don't usually come from. And if they don't, or because even if he gets hurt too, Dustin Crum, I think, is a viable backup option for a short-term solution. I like
Sure.
them. I like them getting Dustin Crum. I think it's fine. My thing with Montreal is just like I said, you have to face a little adversity. How do you handle it? That's honestly my big thing with Montreal is just, you know what, hey, if you have a couple bad games here or there, kind of like even though he was hurt in the Grey Cup, how do you handle that? If there's a situation again like where David, we all know the second Toronto game in Montreal where Montreal had the miraculous comeback, but Davis got hurt during it, which kind of killed their season, even though they did end up still finishing second in the East. You have to learn that you just you got to pull guys at the right time. It's just more or less, how does emotion and just the emotional and the mental toll of the season kind of, where does it take you? That's my big thing with Montreal.
Well, I mean, Davis, for as good a quarterback as he is, has shown to be, he's still young. He's still young as far as a CFL quarterback is concerned, right? So, I agree with you. The adversity is something to be aware of. On the other hand, um, again, the consistency in the coaching and the way the coaching is developed that program, I'm still fairly confident that Montreal will do well, and
Mm-hmm.
I think they have they have found some receivers last year that they were able to move on from Austin Mack. Thanks very much, and so I feel like they know what they have, and again, they've had that consistency. So I'm going to be fairly confident in them to do well. I'd probably put my confidence in them somewhere between an 8 or a 9.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's just I I honestly think they're kind of the more consistent program in the East right now, where it's just year in and year out. Jason Moss continues to show us that he's a damn good head coach. And
Yes,
Grey
agreed.
Cup, multiple East, 4 East finals in a row. It's just, in the even number years he misses the Grey Cup, and the odd number years he gets that. Can he buck that trend? We'll have to wait and find out.
Absolutely.
Because we started with your team, we're going to end with my team, which takes us to Hamilton.
Hmm.
And defense is my big question mark with them. It's simple. Look, they added Winton McManus in the offseason. That's going to be a big voice in the room. But their secondary was a really, even though they have staff, they've got Katsonis, who's a hell of a football player. They got Jamal Peters, hell of a football player. There's some moments where, kind of little oil leaking a little bit. The Tigers' roar turns into more of a meow. I really think, and I know they do have Trey Ford, but for what this current iteration of the Ticats is, this really feels like the year that, if not now, when? Because I know we've been saying that for almost
Yep.
27 years now, and I know even though my show's only been talking CFL for like a few since I started covering the league, but with Hamilton, the more I get a vibe on the team, it really feels like, if not now, when for them.
I totally agree. And we have to be getting close to the Bo Levi swan song. And what is that? What is the legacy, right?
Winning a Grey Cup
And
in Calgary would be a hell of a swan song to go out on, though.
right. So and breaking the
27-year
curse, so to
trend.
speak. Yeah, exactly. So I will yeah, I think this is the year where they're kind of going all in. I think that's a team where you're going to see, if you're not performing, there's another person we're finding to bring in and take that. Like, I think they're going to be finding spots to make sure that they do have the support to get through that. Although it will be interesting to see how they do with Greg Bell going to Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
So can they still find a balanced attack that they were using quite well last year? So I know it's Milanovic. I know that he finds ways to make things work, but I think they're really going to be trying to get there this year.
Yeah, it's just they're really trying. And I also said this too, and I for everything that's good and holy, I don't mean this in the worst way possible, but for as much as going into 2025, there was a lot of hope just with everything in the front office. It was obviously dealt a very tragic blow to where
Yes.
I give that team a lot of props because I asked after a few weeks after that when they came to Toronto, like, hey, who's running the operations now? And they just kind of said, hey, they're running it by committee. They really just learned, like, hey, Orlando took a lot of the power back on, and with the, like I said, the very tragic passing of Ted Gavaya. That was something that kind of was, I feel like, not overweighing the team, but it was obviously a very impactful cloud that, like, you could definitely tell that the team had to deal with throughout the season. And I'm not trying to say anything bad
No.
about
No.
it. I'm just trying to
No.
say Stuff like that, it doesn't get noticed on the football field, but you could definitely tell the team was playing for something more than that. And I feel like they can even still carry his legacy on, even by winning a championship, because of how so many of those guys were brought in because Ted saw something in them.
Agreed. 100% agreed. And you would think that would just push them to do even more, right? So, yeah, I think they, again, fairly confident in where they're at. I'm not at the point where I'm ready to be like, oh, for sure, like they take the East or anything like that. But they'll push it. They'll push for it.
There's really an open season feeling in the East, and this last team, after I was always kind of like a 6 on them too, but after what I saw last year, and I honestly do think they probably are the best backup quarterback situation in the CFL, is Toronto, because even though it was a scrimmage, and people don't want, I know there's a lot of people out there that are not going to like to hear this, but Chad Kelly was looking like Chad Kelly yesterday out there. You know, he was getting his throws off. He was doing a lot of the quarterback draws and just like fake, run it in, boom, do his thing. He's kind of looking like he's got his swagger back a little bit. But my big question with this team, honestly, is going to come down to who's running the ball,
Yep.
who's guarding the quarterback, because the offensive line last year was atrocious for a lot of the season. And defensively, the secondary, look, bringing guys back like a Darius Pickett, bringing Robert Priester back, bringing back Deshaun Amos, another player who I got to talk to yesterday as well. I think is going to do wonders for the Argonauts. The McManus loss, I feel like, will be felt more in the locker room than it was on the field, just because he didn't play a whole ton last year because he was hurt for a bit of the year.
Yep.
But I really do think this is a team that can kind of control their own destiny. They're like, I say Montreal hasn't made a Grey Cup in an even number of years the last years. It's because Toronto's been the team to do that. Now, I'm not saying Toronto's going to be there in Calgary come November 15th, but I definitely feel like if they can stay afloat before their August 6th home opener at BMO Field, they're going to be kind of that team that, everyone at the start of the year is kind of like Toronto, but towards it's like, hey, Toronto, it's like, oh, look at Toronto, because right now their over under win total is 7.5, and honestly, I put this team between 8 to 11 wins for this year. That's where I kind of project them to be. I think
Okay.
it can either go well. I think they'll hover around 5. They'll hover. They'll as long as they
Hmm.
can play hovering football. It's just there's a lot of games last year that they kind of lost by fault of their own that they can't afford to lose this year.
Yeah, I think I think this will be a growth year for the Argos. It's a new head coach. Not that they don't know the
Yeah,
guy, they know the voice, all those things, but when it's a new head coach, he wants to do things his way, right? And they have to learn those. I always like the ability of bringing in a new head coach for the ability to change things, but you also have to remember that changing things takes time
yeah.
and people have to get on board with that. So I'm a little bit in the park of, yes, Chad Kelly can bring his swagger back, and that's awesome. Just keep his mouth closed. It'll be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And maybe take his Twitter away. I just saying.
Yeah.
But can he play football? Yes, he can.
Yeah.
And again, if he goes down, I believe you still have Arbuckle in the wings, do you not?
Yeah, so right now it goes Kelly 1, Arbuckle 2, and then Tucker Horn 3, which
Right.
Arbuckle was the concern for me yesterday. He wasn't totally looking like himself. He was missing some throws. He didn't like he had a couple picks. Just he didn't look like the Nick that I saw throughout the 2025 season. So that's a big question too, because if Kelly were to, and I think a more hurdle for Kelly more than anything is going to be the mental hurdle of when you get hit for the first time, especially
Hmm.
considering he's going back to the stadium where he broke his leg, where his leg bone was coming out of of his skin.
Yes.
Once he gets hit for the first time, he's going to realize, hey, I can get back up and keep doing this again. I also think him having his first preseason, I don't know how much he's going to play on Saturday, but his first preseason game being in an environment where people just can't stand him and they hate him. We'll see how he responds to that, and no matter the limited amount of action he plays. And when I say 8 to 11 wins for Toronto, I'm just like 11's on the very side. I do think it's somewhere like between 8, 9. I think 10 if they get lucky, but I definitely think they're at least an 8 and 10 football team. I don't think that's one thing with the CFL this year. I don't think we're going to see a truly bad team. And I know we were dogging on Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I think bad for this year is probably going to be maybe like what last year was for Toronto, 5-13 or like 6-12. I don't think you're going to see anything below 5 wins this year. Unless it comes apart for one team, we don't know yet. That's the beautiful mystery of football. But circling it back to Toronto, I do think their first couple games, like, look, they've got some tough games. They have to go, they have to go to Montreal. They have to go play their
Hmm.
former head coach, which kind of screams like a Disney movie where the Mighty Ducks get killed by the Hawks in the first movie, and then they kind of beat them later on in the year, where it's kind of
Yeah,
like,
that's fair. That's fair.
yeah. And then they go to Sask, Calgary, home to Winnipeg, home to Hamilton. And I'm pretty sure that game with Sask is also home against Saskatchewan, wink, wink,
It is. Yeah.
in Mosaic. And then they go to BC for BC's home opener, and then they get their bye week. That's the one thing I like about this season this year. Their bye weeks are week 1, the August. I don't know the number of the week, but the August long weekend, and then Thanksgiving week. So for me
Okay.
too, also from a selfish standpoint, having the two holiday long weekends, I don't have to worry about writing a recap.
Kind
Does
of
feel
nice.
kind of
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
But and then week 1 too, because I am out of the country for a wedding, so that's the other thing I was praying for.
Oh,
Um,
wonderful.
yeah.
Worked out
So
really well. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. As soon as the schedule came out, that was the one I was looking forward to. Although between you and me, though, I have a friend's wedding I'm going to, and so I'm not going to the game Saturday in Hamilton because I'm at a bachelor party for the same wedding that I'm on the game when they're home to Hamilton. So it's kind of that funny parallel where it's both of those games I missed, which I joked with Chris, the media guy, yesterday, saying if I show up in a gray suit at the stadium with a couple in me, yeah, it's like just don't mind the guy in the suit. Um, but no, I think there are going to be growing pains with Toronto this year, just from a coaching standpoint, because how does Mike respond when it's, hey, I gotta watch the defense. Hey, I gotta watch
Mhm.
special teams. Hey, I gotta watch offense. I do think they brought in everyone right. They have Gray Quick from Ottawa, Mickey Donovan, hell of a special teams coach, and
Yep.
the offense is going to be what Mike sees. And Chad and Nick, any quarterback who's come here, really buys into what Mike Miller's been selling them. I've gotten to speak to him a couple times. Very nice guy. But I just really think it's going to be more or less, this team. I think this is a team really that's going to dictate how they do. I really do. I honestly think that. And speaking of the guys too, I'm getting the confidence because they have that confidence in themselves to where it's, hey, we may be on the road for the first 2 months of the year, but we get to play football.
Right.
And
Yep.
that's where I really think if they can be around 500 or maybe even a game under 500 going into their home when they come back to Toronto, can only be a positive for them, and it's just really it's up to them to see where they go and take this. I don't think they can be in the Grey Cup. I definitely think they could be a team where it's like, you know what, hey, they put the pieces together. Next year could be really the year, but at the same time too, Kelly's contract is up after this year, so I was explaining this to a couple fans yesterday. I really think there's two universes out there. There's one where in 2027 Chad Kelly's your starter, and there's one where Nick Arbuckle's your starter.
Oh, I can totally agree with that.
Yeah,
And a lot of that will play out this year as to how, like you said, how does Kelly respond to coming back? But also, how does Kelly clean up the other image? Like,
yeah,
how does he do that? Right. I think that's important. Um,
because the
and
other
I
image
think
is on extremely thin ice.
correct. And I think that it's important for him um, to make the effort to make that better as well. Not even just for the Toronto or for himself, but for the league. Like I think that that's important. It's all fine and good to play really well, but you also have to make sure that you're, part of where we want the league to be. So that's the part that I'm excited about, but excited to see, I guess, to see if he can improve that. Yeah, as per usual, I think it's a bit of a crapshoot. Because I think this time of year, this is when all the guys are saying, I feel real good about it, and I see this, and I'm really happy with how I see this. And I'm like, yeah, everybody said that last year too, and we had 3 teams that were well under 500. So I go into the season going, okay, I see, these changes in place. I would love to have a season like you said, where we don't have a team running away with it, where we've got, your
Parity.
lowest team still has 6 wins, like some more parity. I would love that. Um, I know for my team, I'm like, man, if you can get to 500, I'd be so excited. Like that would be amazing because we haven't seen 500 ball in a very long time. So I will be happy if that's where we can end up. I know their goal is always bigger than that, but that's where I'm happiest. So if we can have a little more parity in that, definitely no complaints from me.
Yeah. My big thing with Toronto too is just like more or less like what are you? I think there's a lot of teams this year where there's a lot of soul searching. You know, you
Yeah,
guys, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Toronto. I would even throw Hamilton in that category as well. And to a further extent, BC. I think the only teams I feel like going into the year, I feel like we can comfortably know what they're going to be would probably be Montreal, Sask, and Calgary, just because like what we've talked about, I think is where they are, and those are the teams that people look at where it's like, hey, they can be better. So it's really
100%.
going to be a wait and see that we have. And I know preseason football started today, but in about 17 days from now, we're going to figure out what does each team look like. But my one true hope for this year is that by week, what's the week number? By like week 18 or 19, you're still seeing semi-competitive football. That's my
Yes.
really hope, because like I'll be honest with you, like the last 3 Argos games of the year to like cover and watch, it's not really fun when your team's like slogging at like 500 and just getting run off the field every night with backups on the field.
Welcome to my world since 2021, my friend.
That's what I'm
And
saying. Like we don't want that.
so
That's why I'm
I don't
talking
want
about.
that. You're right. I
Yeah,
don't. And I feel like this is the year I won't be doing that. So that's exciting.
exactly. Nova. I believe it's October 24th. You guys go. I want to double check that just because I'm pretty sure your last game. It was either you guys or Winnipeg. Its last game is at Sask. Or at BC. Excuse me. I just want to double check that because you guys obviously go to
Oh,
BC for the preseason.
hmm
Your last game is actually at you guys are at Saskatchewan, 3 o'clock on October 24th.
yes.
Yes.
So that yeah, I'm actually finally going to knock that stadium off my list this year. I'm going to the game in July,
Ooh.
and then I'll only have BMO left, so I'll have to come out and visit you for a game at some point here.
September 19th.
September 19th. That's
Yeah.
the one, hey? Yeah.
Yeah. That's when you guys are here.
Okay. Well, one of these times I will get there. Yes.
Yes, like and I'm starting to look at some stadiums too to like knock off. I've only got the two. I've only got two so far, but I'm hoping to get to. We'll see. We'll see about this year if I can get to one. If not this year, I'll definitely look at it next year. Just because, as you and I have talked in the past, I'm really looking at being in Calgary in 6 months from now.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, I hope you get I hope we all get to gather in, and I hope you and I are very excited to be in Calgary. That would be a fun matchup.
that definitely would be. That 100% would be. Well, folks, we are over halfway done this wonderful tour of the league as we have now got 5 teams in the bag. We're still figuring out the rest when teams 6, 7, 8, and 9 are going to be released, but I can guarantee you this, it will be before June the 4th. But for my friend Andrew Hoskins, the Freep, I am Griff. 431 of these in the bag. We'll see you next time on an all-new YWC Football Talk. Keep it Canadian, everybody. Welcome, CFL.